What's up, everyone? Back for another beer review, and today I'll be reviewing a beer from the Deschutes Brewery, and they're out of Bend, Oregon, and this is their Black Butte 33. So they're calling this one Imperial Porter that is brewed with maple syrup, chocolate, and vanilla beans, then aged in bourbon barrels. It comes in at 12% alcohol by volume, 59 IBUs at the time of review. This bottle is just over 1.5 years old. So here in the Buffalo, New York area, we do not get distribution of any Deschutes products, and haven't as far as I've been drinking craft beer, going back 14 years now, 13, 14 years. And that bums me out because I think the base of this beer, the regular Black Butte, is one of the best American porters out there, and I wish I could get my hands on it regularly. Anyway, a couple months ago, I went to Cleveland, Ohio to check out A Christmas Story house. If you're a fan of the movie, I highly recommend it. It's awesome. They filmed some of the film there. You can go into the actual house, Ralphie's house. Across the street, there's a gift shop. There's a museum. It's fantastic. I think the tour is like $14, but it's great. It's a great time. But on the way home, I stopped at a couple bottle shops in one in Cleveland, one on the Willoughby, I think. And anyway, on the way home, stopped at a couple different bottle shops, and there was one bottle shop that just moved in to a new location, and it was chaos. They had beer all over the place and whatnot. But I found about a six-pack worth of different beers that I can't get here anymore, and they were all pretty cheap in comparison to a lot of stuff you see now. This beer was like $3.89 for the bottle, and I was like, I gotta grab it. I don't see Deschutes. Now, I don't know how this beer was handled. Again, it's just over 1.5 years old, but a beer like this should hold up, assuming that it wasn't like hanging out in like 90-degree weather for like a significant period of time. But anyway, I've had one other, I've reviewed one other of their, their special release here, their anniversary beer of Black Butte. It was their Black Butte 30, which was 30th birthday reserve. I did a live stream on it. It was my 300th review. It was the first anniversary of my channel back in 2019, and it was pretty good. Bit thin, but pretty good. This sounds pretty damn delicious. You're talking maple syrup, vanilla, chocolate, bourbon barrels. Yeah, let's sign me up. So hopefully, I don't have an explosion or anything here. Hopefully it's all good. So I love the Deschutes black cap. I think they usually have white ones, or did. That's a pretty sick cap. Anyway, I am pumped up about this. Let's get it into the glass. Sorry for story time, but we don't get Deschutes around here, so try to do a crazy pour here to kind of get ahead, and it didn't do anything. It's 12% barrel aged, the whole nine. I'm not expecting crazy carbonation, but I wanted a little bit, so we'll see. So that looks beautiful in the glass, pitch black. It poured out more of like a cola color, and actually, you know what? Take that back. It's pitch black when I hold it to the camera. When I hold it to the light, this is cola colored. You can see kind of through at the bottom here, almost Dr. Pepper cola colored. Has a thin film of this like tan colored head. But yeah, it's barrel aged. Doesn't look like it has a crazy amount of carbonation. Decent alcohol legs, but it plays the role. It's good nose. Smells pretty good. So this does not smell like it has adjuncts. Now again, just over 1.5 years old. Has the maple syrup held up. Has the chocolate held up. Has the vanilla beans held up. In the nose, not really. This just smells like a really good, like barrel-aged Imperial Porter. Yeah, there's bourbon, there's oak, there's vanilla, there's a little of the spirit itself, like a spicy, peppery bourbon. And then there's chocolate, there's a roasted malt, there's almost a slight umami, again, from the age maybe, and maybe it wasn't handled all that well. A little bit of cherry and like fruity notes as well. I think I'm getting like an overt sweetness now. And I think that might be the faded maple syrup. That's the one thing about maple syrup. When it fades and when it goes away, when it's an adjunct in a beer, and let's say you had it in your fridge for 6 months or a year and it starts to fade, the maple, the actual characteristic of the beer, like the aroma, the taste, it doesn't scream maple anymore. It just becomes a little bit like a sweet kind of character in the beer. And it's sweeter, but you don't necessarily say it's maple. I know this only because I've had so many whodunit / mystery beers that I've done on my channel where, it'll be a beer with maple and I'll be like, oh man, that's pretty sweet. There's a, kind of crazy sweetness here. And then it turns out to be maple. It's just the maple faded, but the sweetness didn't. Yeah, I couldn't tell you. I mean, there's a little bit of chocolate. I wouldn't say there's, I can smell chocolate in here. Same thing with the maple, not any maple. The vanilla's here though, a little bit more. Probably the only adjunct that's held up. But again, I can't tell if it's coming from the barrel or it's from the vanilla beans. I don't think it's pronounced enough to be from the vanilla beans, so I think it's the barrel. But yeah, it smells pretty good. A little bit of molasses there. Definitely a slight umami kind of vibe to it. yeah. Anyway, let's get into it. Cheers, everyone. Ooh, that's real nice. Taste is definitely better than the nose. Oh, there's such a rich, unrefined, like there's an unrefined maple. So maple without the sweetness. I shouldn't say rich. There's a rich character overall of beer, but now I'm getting unrefined maple. Like I'm getting the maple character, but it doesn't have the sweetness that you perceive with the maple. Body's a bit thin. Shout out to Paul over at PA Brewed. When I reviewed this, the 30th anniversary version of this, the one knock on it was thin. And I'll tell you right now, this is thin. This is pretty thin. This is like medium, maybe a touch over medium body. It's 12%. Like that might help me as far as the drinkability is concerned, but like a beer like this with these flavors, I want it to be thicker. If this was like higher side of medium, lower side of full, I'd be okay with it, although I like to see it thicker. The fact that it's just like a touch over medium body, it's definitely thin. It's more than a bit thin. The mouthfeel is a decent carbonation. I'd say mild to moderately carbonated, but there is a smooth, almost creamy nature to this one. I think being in that barrel, the carbonation has kind of died out. And yeah, there's a nice, smooth, creamy kind of sensation. The taste, really rich chocolate right at the forefront. There's baker's chocolate that kind of morphs into like a sweet or a semi-sweet kind of like dark chocolate. It's almost fudge-esque in how it is delivered to the palate right after that baker. Like, it's weird. It's like you took baker's chocolate and just rolled it up with more sugar and sugar until it became fudge. That's kind of just how it feels on the palate. There is a molasses, caramel toffee, brown sugar, sweet caramelized burnt sugars, for sure. That umami character is there. It's a little bit of like not quite a soy sauce. It just has an umami kind of overall vibe to it, like throughout the palate. Very subtle. So if like I was doing this blind, I would think there's a little bit of age to it just because of that umami character. Halfway through the palate, the vanilla hits, and it kind of intertwines with the maple. The vanilla, I can tell it's from the bean itself because it's more substantially like in your face vanilla. Or like if it was like a vanilla extract or whatever. It's definitely the adjunct as opposed to the barrel. The maple hits me, and again, it's unrefined. It's not as sweet. And what it does is it lingers on the palate. It starts to intertwine with the barrel, and the barrel gives me this slight, like, tannic, oak tannin kind of feel. It's semi to full on dry, but the maple just kind of saps the palate, and it's a maple character that hits it, but again, not the sweetness. This, now, as I'm talking to you, is drying on my palate substantially. Pretty sweet up front from all the malts and the 12% and everything, but on the back of the palate, it kind of dies out. Not a big bitterness. I'd say a mild to maybe like a in between mild to moderately bitter. I think the oak tannin dryness is also giving off like a slight like bitterness feel, or at least a feel to a bitterness that's maybe not necessarily a bitterness. Touch of like a leather aspect to it as well. This is pretty fucking good. Honestly, I think this is better than the 30th anniversary. I think the flavors are definitely better. I think the problem with this one, though, is the body. The body's so thin. Like, it's crazy how thin this body is. And I'm taking into account this is Imperial Porter, but I don't give a shit if it's Imperial Porter or Imperial Stout. If you're 12% and you drink like a slightly touch over like medium body like that, I'd like to see this, again, higher side of medium, lower side of full. At least in that range, and it's not. So I think this, again, I should have went and watched my 30th anniversary review of this one, but I think I said it was crazy thin and kind of stopped it from getting higher, and I think that's the problem here. The flavors definitely indicate like a 4.25, 4.3, 4.35, somewhere in that range. That's how good this beer is. It's really good, but I'm going to have to knock it down because of the body for sure. It's just lacking a little bit. We'll say this, 12%, definite warming. I can feel it just overall in the body, like I'm just like, oh, this is a bigger beer. But there is no astringency, and I've been saying that a lot about beers. Like, there's no astringency on the palate. A lot of people, what does that mean? It's just like, sometimes you take a shot of alcohol, right? 40% alcohol. You hit your throat, it hits the back of your throat, in your chest, it's like on fire, right? Some of them. When it's epically smooth and you don't get that, you're like, oh, it hides the alcohol quite well. Something like this. It's 12%. If I can taste the booze on the palate or on the finish, or as it goes down, it's a big warming or hot as the kids would say. That's where I say it's somewhat astringent. It's not. I can feel it warming in my chest. I can feel it overall, but on the palate, back of the throat, all that, no. So Black Butte 30 from Deschutes. Rating, again, I think this deserves flavor-wise like a 4.3 I'd probably give it, but I got to knock it down. So I'm going to give this beer a high 4 out of 5 and go 4.1. That's the best I can do, 4.1 out of 5. I would love to give this a little bit higher, but that body is so substantially thin that it bugs me. So, I don't know. I feel like I'm Paul. Sorry, Paul. Love you. Anyway, price point availability, again, don't know the price point for like, I would say like if this was like $20 a 4-pack, $5 a bottle, sure. I paid under $4 a bottle and I picked it up randomly, already aged for me pretty much like 16 or 17 months. Like, whatever. I was worth picking up though. 4.1 out of 5 is good, especially for a beer I paid $3.89 for. Availability, wherever you see Deschutes, you probably should have saw this one back in like June, July of 2021. But they come out with this series every single year. So in 2022 was the 34th anniversary, and then this year in 2023 you'll see the 35th anniversary. Again, I wish we got Deschutes here in the Buffalo, New York area. I would love to review Black Butte, and I was looking for Black Butte. I couldn't even find Black Butte at any of these places. I went to like 3 different stores in and around Cleveland, and I didn't see like 6 packs of Black Butte, which kind of disappointed me, but I saw like this beer, right? I kind of want to do like a side-by-side of Black Butte, Emma Fitzgerald Porter, Founders Porter, and maybe like Smutty Robust Porter. And just like, those are like, and maybe even Anchor Porter you could throw in, and maybe like London Porter from Fuller's. Like, I would just love to do like a blind taste test of those 6 and just be like, well, what's the best porter? I don't know. Anyway, if you've had this one before, post in the comment section. Let me know what you think about it. If you had anything from Deschutes, have you had any other prior vintages of this, or even, you know, the 2022? I would love to hear what you think about this one. Do you think Black Butte Porter is a good beer? Again, you have to look at Black Butte as a classic, I think, American porter at this point. It's been around for a long time, and it's up there with one of my favorite. Again, I want to review it at some point. Hopefully I can find it. Anyway, appreciate everybody stopping by for another beer review here on the Beer Patrol. To the next one. Oh, yo, hang on. Story time on the back. Let's make this the longest review ever. I say that in like every third review. But toast to our 33rd anniversary with this Imperial homage to Black Butte Porter. This edition is a real feat, marrying maple, chocolate, vanilla, and bourbon barrel aging in a truly celebratory beer. I don't disagree. Just a bit thin. Anyway, to the next one. Cheers.